Get ready for the dictation on the count of 3, 2, 1, start. CAA stands for the Citizenship Amendment Act, which is a controversial law passed in India in December 2019. The law provides a path to Indian citizenship for certain religious minorities who fled persecution in neighboring countries, namely Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, and Christians from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. However, the law excludes Muslims from this path to citizenship, leading to accusations of discrimination and a violation of India's secular principles. The law sparked protests and violence across India, with critics saying it was part of the ruling government's agenda to marginalize India's Muslim population. The law has been challenged in India's Supreme Court and continues to be a divisive issue in Indian politics. The Citizenship Amendment Act, or CAA, has been one of the most controversial pieces of legislation in recent Indian history, and its passage sparked a wave of protests and unrest across the country. Supporters of the law argue that it is a necessary measure to provide a safe haven for persecuted minorities from neighboring countries, while critics argue that it is a thinly veiled attempt to marginalize India's Muslim population and undermine the country's secular principles. The law was first introduced in Parliament in December 2019 and quickly passed by the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP) government. The law amends India's Citizenship Act of 1955 to provide a path to citizenship for Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, and Christians from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan who arrived in India before December 31, 2014. However, it specifically excludes Muslims from this path to citizenship, leading to accusation of discrimination and a violation of India's secular principles. The BJP government has defended the law, arguing that it is necessary to protect religious minorities who face persecution in neighboring countries. They point to incidents such as the forced conversion of Hindus and Christians in Pakistan and the targeting of Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar as evidence of the need for the law. The government has also argued that the law does not take away the citizenship of any Indian citizen, including Muslims, and that it does not impact the citizenship status of anyone born in India. Critics of the law, however, argue that it is a clear violation of India's secular principles and the Constitution, which prohibits discrimination based on religion. They point out that the law specifically targets Muslims, who make up the largest religious minority in India, and that it sets a dangerous precedent for future discriminatory policies. They also argue that the law is part of a broader agenda by the BJP government to marginalize India's Muslim population and turn the country into a Hindu-only state. The passage of the law sparked widespread protests across India, with millions of people taking to the streets to voice their opposition. The protests were largely peaceful, but there were also incidents of violence, particularly in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh, where police were accused of using excessive force to quell the protests. The government responded to the protests by imposing curfews and shutting down the internet in some areas, leading to accusations of a crackdown on free speech. The law has also been challenged in India's Supreme Court, with several petitions filed arguing that it is unconstitutional. The court has yet to issue a ruling on the matter, and the law remains in effect. In the meantime, there have been calls for civil disobedience and non cooperation with the government's effort to implement the law. The controversy surrounding the CAA has also drawn international attention, with several countries and international organizations expressing concern about the law's impact on India's secular principles and its Muslim population. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has called on India to ensure that the law is in line with its international human rights obligations and to protect the rights of all religious minorities in the country. The CAA has also sparked debate about the broader issue of citizenship and immigration in India. India has a complex and often confusing system of citizenship and nationality laws, which has led to difficulties for many people, particularly those who are poor or marginalized. The CAA only adds to this complexity, and there are concerns that it could lead to further discrimination against Muslims and other marginalized groups. In conclusion, the Citizenship Amendment Act has been one of the most controversial and divisive issues in Indian politics in recent years. While supporters argue that it is a necessary measure to protect persecuted minorities, critics argue that it is a thinly veiled attempt to marginalize India's Muslim population and undermine the country's secular principles. The law has sparked widespread protests and unrest, and its constitutionality remains in question as it continues to be challenged in India's Supreme Court. The controversy surrounding the law is far from over,